Hi, I'm Krista Redpath, and you are listening to Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops, a weekly podcast brought to you by Krista Redpath Media, where we break down the game, elevate the story, and champion the female voice.
Krista Redpath in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. It was her birthday last week, and also a celebration because we're into postseason play, both at the high school level of basketball as well as the college level. The Big Sky Conference tournament begins in Boise, Idaho on Saturday. Yes. How's your prep going? You got piles and piles, mountains and mountains.
I do have piles and piles, but this time of year is so exciting, Colter.
It is.
I mean, I'm taking off for Boise tomorrow, just to make sure I get in okay. Obviously, tournament starts on Saturday, but you know, this time of year, it's like a renewed energy.
Totally.
And these teams that maybe didn't finish as well as they wanted to get a restart. Then there's some pressure on the top teams, and you watch who's going to be able to handle that pressure.
Sure, yeah.
And I always say when the lights are bright, you know, there's certain players that just step in and they really, you know, we marvel at their toughness. And anyway, it's just going to be a great week.
I talked to Matt Logie earlier today, Montana State men's basketball coach, and he was saying something very interesting. He said, I think it's overplayed the standings of the regular season during the regular season, because who cares? You might be in eighth one. You might be in eighth one week, and then you might be in second the next week. And you know, Northern Colorado was in first for on the men's side for like 8 weeks. Then they got knocked off, and Montana kept rolling. And so then I think everybody kind of just anointed Montana as the champions. Well, guess what? Montana stubs their toe in Portland on Saturday. Northern Colorado sweeps 3 in a row over the weekend, and now they tie, and Northern Colorado gets the 1 seed. So Steve Smiley's crew certainly maintained fortitude. That's what makes what happened on the women's side so impressive, though, is we had the exact same number 1 and exact same number 2 for the duration of this regular season.
Little bit of a different hiccup there with Montana State losing at home to Sac State. However, Colter, sometimes those streaks, they're talked about so much in the media, it's just more of a distraction.
Totally.
And so now, I mean, I think if I look at Montana State, you know, there's some urgency there. But I think they were playing a little bit of scared to lose,
sure,
which is natural. I have the same feeling the year we were undefeated.
Totally.
And the pressure in the last weekend to go, oh my goodness. You know, I had 2 other years where I lost once. And it's so hard to finish undefeated. And so I think there's some pressure there. And now, you know, they can just go out and play. Obviously, some big question marks with Mara Dykstra. They really need her back. I know Dylan Phillip is out. You don't ask these coaches about injuries or sports information directors right now, but that's a really big one for Coach Binford.
No doubt, for sure. Around the Big Sky in women's hoops, we have a new sponsor this week. Giddy Up Go Creative Studios. I'd never heard of these people, so tell us about this.
Shauna Murphy-Layton, many years doing creative design here in Missoula and the surrounding Montana areas. She started her own creative studio. She did all the ads this year for Around the Big Sky and Women's Hoops. So if you get on any of our Instagram pages for either ESPN, Skyline, Krista Redpath Media, all those ads were done by Shauna. So you've probably seen her designs all over town, and she's bringing that talent straight to you. So Giddy Up Go is the creative studio of Shauna Layton, a Missoula native with years of experience crafting logos, branding, and marketing that makes businesses stand out. Whether you're launching something new or refreshing your look, Shauna's got you covered. Level up your brand today at giddyup-go.com. Give her Instagram some love. It's a long one. Giddy Up Go Creative Studio, but check her out.
Appreciate Shauna and her team, that company, for being a part of Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops. The news of the weekend from the Big Sky Conference was that Montana State did have their winning streak snapped. They lost on Senior Day in Bozeman to Sac State, but they did bounce back and beat Idaho in the regular season finale. That helps the Bobcats win the outright Big Sky Conference championship. So I guess 2-part question. First of all, how important, just for the sort of legacy of this team, was it, do you think, to claim the outright and not have to share it?
Well, I think that's big. I mean, I think you're outright champions. Although, I still struggle with the narrative that the regular season is... Right. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You want to win the tournament. But sure, for them and to have the type of season that they've had, and they did have a stumble, and it's hard to do on senior night. Montana State's had the last 3 senior nights disrupted.
I know.
Eastern Washington did it twice,
yes,
which is so weird that they landed on Eastern Washington the previous 2 years.
Totally.
Not the momentum you want. However, it was kind of a much appreciated Monday night game in order to get back in the winning column. The last few years, there's just been a handful of Big Sky teams that have had Monday games, and they've tried to rotate those, but this year everyone had a Monday game. And I think if you're Montana State, you're playing a really tough Idaho team, and you get that win
in Moscow too.
Yes, and that is great momentum heading into the tournament.
Do you think that there could be a slight silver lining to Montana State dropping a game before the tournament?
I do. I really do. And I try to see a silver lining in everything, and I watched the whole thing unfold as I was at the Lady Grizz game. I had the Bobcat game up the whole time on my phone, and I could just see it. I could see that, this Sac State team we've talked about, they have some really explosive individual players. They haven't collectively been able to put it together. However, they've had some injuries. Fatu Jaite hasn't been there when J.D. Martin's there. Someone's sick. They've got personnel here and there, and they just put it all together, and you could just kind of see it unfold.
No doubt.
And Montana State, they've had some struggles with trying to fill rotations. I mean, they had a pretty set rotation there, and all of a sudden she's having to put Addie Harris and Taylor Cherrick into the starting lineup so she doesn't get that surge coming off the bench.
No doubt.
She rotated back, though, against the Idaho and actually put in Lexi Deaton and brought Addie Harris and Taylor Cherrick back off the bench, which I think is her just going, wait, let's go back to what we were good at here.
For sure.
And let's start the game with a veteran like Lexi Deaton who can handle the trials and tribulations of the beginning of a game, similar to a Caitlin Martin. And let's bring those two freshmen off for a surge.
Definitely, I think you can tell the impact in the rotation. When it comes to the win streak, I agree. I think that not all win streaks are created equal. We haven't really seen a team go on this long of a win streak in a really long time. And the fact that it even stemmed back to the non-conference too, I mean, you're talking months and months where you have no leeway to even stub your toe or play poorly.
And they didn't stub their toe.
Right. Let's say you're on like the Grizz men, for example. They were on a 10-game winning streak. If they pushed that to 12, I don't think the Grizz having their winning streak snapped is a silver lining, because 10, 12, okay, that's just really good. But when you're talking like a historic level of winning streak, if Montana State would have carried this thing all the way through the regular season, you're talking 22 or 23 in a row before the tournament. So then you got to push it to 26 in a row to actually get the automatic bid out of the Big Sky tournament.
I know, and us media people, we love to talk about streaks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And if you're coaches and your players, you don't love streaks.
No doubt.
But December 7th is the last time that they lost to Oral Roberts in overtime. So that's an impressive run. Again, I think, heading into the tournament, a little bit of a reset. They know they're not invincible. They watched, it unfold in front of 3,000 plus fans in the Brick, which is not a good feeling. But again, come back against Idaho, and how this tournament is set up, Coulter, which you and I have gone back and forth. I mean, it is anyone's tournament.
We're on the Big Sky in women's hoops. Let's take a look at what went on other than Montana State's loss Saturday to Sac State. That was 73-69. The Hornets won in Bozeman. Last Thursday, Weber State beat Eastern Washington in a tightly contested affair. This was back and forth. Weber actually swelled their lead pretty big. Eastern cut it all the way down, but Weber hangs on. Montana gets a win over Sac State in Missoula Thursday. That's before the Hornets went to Bozeman and won. Lady Grizz won 71-63. Idaho State 75-69 over Idaho last Thursday. And Montana State, this is before the loss, they pushed the win streak to 19 with a 78-49 win over Portland State. Then Saturday, Idaho State beats Eastern Washington 75-60. Montana beats Portland State 74-61. Idaho beats Weber 73-58, and Northern Arizona beats Northern Colorado 80-70. Monday regular season finale went to overtime in Greeley. Weber State wins 68-67 over UNC. Northern Arizona stamps it, a 16-2 conference record, which most years would get you a league title, but it just didn't this year. But to NAU 83-71 over Idaho State. Eastern Washington takes a little bit of momentum into the tournament with a 80-77 win over the Lady Grizz in Cheney. Montana State did bounce back 67-54 against Idaho. At Sac State, they won 2 out of 3 down the stretch here after beating Portland State 69-57 on Monday. So maybe they do take a little of momentum in. I want to stick on Sac State because I agree with you. You and I have been on this exact same page all year long. I picked Sac State third in my preseason poll. I thought they were going to be the third best team behind Montana State and Northern Arizona. Part of that was because of the returners that they had within their program, like Bethany Versteege. And then also, I thought that the additions of several players who had Big Sky Conference experience, like J.D. Martin, I mean, they have multiple, 4 or 5 girls with previous Big Sky Conference experience. So I thought that them being towards the bottom of the league standings was a huge disappointment. but maybe they take a little momentum into Boise. So where are we at with Sac State right now?
Well, I mean, I agree with you, and we've talked about them all year in terms of just really good individual players. I mean, obviously J.D. Martin is impressive, part of Eastern Washington's championship
team. Been an all Big Sky player before.
Last year, I mean, Benta Viersteg to me is one of the most prolific players in the Big Sky, if not one of the best point guards in the league.
She is.
And I know you're a huge fan. I am too, and we talk about these players that when the bright lights come on in Boise play well, and she's one of them. And I think she just has a high motor. She really gets after it. Another player that I want to talk about, though, Lena Falk, hasn't gotten a ton of airtime with us because we seem to just go right to Katie Penueta and Fatu Jaite. I think Lena Falk really brings some added element. And again, I talked to Coach Koloff this week. He's the first coach that I've actually visited with. And he just talked about the fact that they just haven't been able to get everybody clicking on all cylinders.
Sure.
And so now everyone is healthy. And they're going to play an Eastern Washington team that they split with on the year. The first time these two teams went around the block, I mean, 80 to 89, it was like a track meet between Eastern and Sac State. The second one was a little bit more of a defensive battle. But I think they're going to have their hands full because this is an Eastern Washington team that I think has been playing pretty good basketball as of late in the season. And we've talked a lot about those players, too, Courtney Grossman. And, I mean, just Eastern's pretty tough.
No doubt. That'll be an interesting one. We'll come back to some of these first-round matchups. When you look at the final standings, and we'll get into each and every one of these teams and their seeds, et cetera, but I do think that the team that probably was the biggest surprise of where they finished was Weber State.
Oh, boy, Weber, really impressive. I mean,
maybe Idaho, too, under a first-year head coach, but Idaho has had a lot of really good teams in recent years. Like, they've proven they're a pretty established program. Weber has been, like, the bottom team in the league for a long time. So to go from last to fourth is pretty big-time progress.
I got all these notes all over the place right now, but one thing, and this 10 conference wins are the most for Weber State since 2017, 2018.
Right.
So that should tell you right there. Gentile Jackson has done a heck of a job. I mean, she's got 7 transfers on this roster. I do think that she should be getting some votes for Coach of the Year.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if she's going to get it. Probably not, but she should be there because when I look at Weber State and I think about how they were essentially picked, number 10 and number 9.
I was going to say last. Yeah,
last place
yes.
in the coaches and media. And to look at how they finished, they play tough. They play mostly, man-to-man defense. They've got some shooters. They're able to really lean on. I think Kendra Para has had a phenomenal year.
Great year.
Nopu also just, gets after it on the glass. So Weber State has been impressive. And also that Rose Bubakar, the transfer from BYU, has really given them a good look. So I look at Weber State potentially being one of these teams that comes in and really makes some noise in Boise.
Lady Grizz entered this last weekend with a 4-game losing streak. Then they won a couple at home, and that's what you always talk about. You got to protect home court, especially when that home court is Dahlberg Arena and you have a real deal home court advantage. But then they fall on Monday. So 8-10 for the Lady Grizz. They take the 6th seed into Boise. To me on Monday, they just looked like they were out of gas a little bit. So I guess how do you balance what went on these last 3 games? Because certainly pivotal for them to get the 2 wins at home. But 8-10, certainly all in all, probably a disappointing season for the Lady Grizz so far. But they could write a lot of that in Boise. So where are we at with Montana?
Well, I think the Eastern Washington game was a lot of offense, so they put up some points, which Coulter, in a way, that seems to give them some momentum on the defensive end. I mean, Matt Koenig had a great game she's had a couple great games here in a row.
Yes.
16 points. McCly McCall had 13. Danny Barch had 11, and MJ Bruno had 10. Avery Waddington not in the starting lineup, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. She had 9 off the bench. So he's kind of messing around with some of his lineups. But again, big wins against, you look at Portland State and Sac State, and those are really big wins for them to get at home. So you just try to build off of any of that momentum. I don't think they're overly happy with maybe how the season ended, but if you are one of those top 6 teams and you get one of those buys, you have a chance to watch the tournament unfold a little bit, and you go in, play tough, eke out a win, and you're in the tournament.
That's why it is big time for that they beat Sac State, because if they lose to Sac State, it's Sac State that gets the bye, and Montana's played on the first day, and now you're really, really swimming upstream if you're the Lady Grizz. So we're going to come back to this because I want to do a little word association and phrase association with each and every team in the Big Sky Conference. Take a look at the brackets. We'll take a look at the first round matchups, and we'll take a look at where each and every of the 10 teams in the Big Sky women's basketball is at. It is Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops, probably presented by Giddy Up Go Creative Studio. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, Chris Redpath in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. A question, actually several questions from the listener line for Krista. First of all, a comment on Olivia Nelson's free throw shooting style, says the texter listener. Olivia Nelson's the great point guard from the University of Idaho. She does like a little turn of her wrist and like flips it up there. I'm trying to look up her percentage quickly, but I mean, what do you think of this? As you said, look up
I have it right here. She shoots 80% from the free throw line, so she's a good free throw shooter.
She's a good free throw shooter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I helped coach my son's AAU team from a young age, and changing shots is really hard. So if you pick up habits, and if she's shooting 80%, I am not complaining. If I'm a coach, if she has some weird like rotation that she does with the ball. So to our listener out there,
I think this is one of the things in sports that I find actually frustrating is the attempt at homogenization, like trying to make everybody shoot the same.
We got our producers in there, like
they're giving the charades version of Olivia Nelson behind the glass.
Okay, so I noticed this on Monday too when they were playing Montana State. I can't believe I haven't picked up on it yet this season. It's really ridiculous. It works for her. She's shooting like 80%.
Yeah,
but it's a little Josh Bannon-y where it's like side slung like that.
He can shoot too.
But he can shoot too. But she stands really straight onto the line, like really offset, like her 2 feet are almost in front of each other.
Okay.
And then brings her wrist all the way up and around and like corkscrews it. It's very weird looking, and she doesn't shoot like that from three. You know, it's just whatever her free throw routine is. But I was laughing that this listener picked up on that too, because it's wild to watch.
Keep the text coming in.
Must be a Vandal fan out there that's
I love it.
Checking in on us. But I also, on that note, I think free throws can be so mental. And I know my son last year had a streak where he just could not make free throws. And the last thing you want to do is start messing around with someone's like routines and how many dribbles they have, how they hold the ball. So at this point, I think Coach Arthur Morera is not messing around with her free throw.
See, to finish my point, I think that the attempted forced homogenization is actually a very detrimental thing to sports. Every baseball player should not have the same swing. Every golfer should not have the same swing. Every shooter should not have the same shot. Reggie Miller is one of the weirdest looking shooters in the history of basketball. He's also one of the 5 or 6 best shooters in the history of the NBA. Like, no one would teach somebody to shoot it where, like Reggie Miller, with like almost like a two-handed push shot. But who hits more big shots than Reggie Miller? I mean, your guy Larry Bird, he shoots it kind of funny too. He's one of the best shooters ever.
Yeah.
So don't if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like I used to tell anybody that I ever coached or gave advice to, whether it's a golf swing or a shot, the only thing that matters is if it looks the same every time. Doesn't matter how it looks.
Right.
It only matters if it looks the same every time. Just try to have consistency. Coaching from Coach Colter here. The second question this person said was, can we submit questions to Krista or about the tournament in general through this or any other venue? Yes, you can. Certainly, you can just text 406-888-1029 and they'll forward them right to my phone. And the third question is, what happened to Brooke Berry at Montana State? Is she hurt? I don't know what the injury is, but she just had to redshirt because of medical reasons.
She has a hand injury. Yeah. I think I'm okay saying that. I mean, Brooke Berry just lights up a room. She's just such an awesome kid and has her dad's number for Montana State.
That's
Dale
cool.
Berry. She's not progressing as much as what they thought.
Sure.
So I do think that her future's bright for Montana State.
Yeah, she'll be a good player. She was a great player at Billings Skyview, then went to New Mexico for a brief moment in time, and then transferred back to Montana State and played a little bit last year as a freshman. And then, as Chris has said, just kind of banged up this year. So probably a tough year to redshirt because you don't get to be a part of on the court of all this.
She's their hype girl. So let me tell you, she is right there.
Oh, I know. One of our good friends of the show, Bill Lamberty, sports information director there at Montana State, he says he just walks over to watch them practice all the time because he just thinks that the girls that aren't playing are just so funny and fun to hang out with, like Brooke Berry and Lindsey Hine. And he's like, always just texting me, telling me all these funny things that they're saying. And it just seems like a really fun group to be around. All right, let's take a look at the Big Sky Conference tournament bracket. First of all, let's go through the seeds here. I just want to get your feedback quickly on each one of the teams. So Montana State, we've talked about them. endlessly throughout this year. They've had a great year. 27 wins and counting, but they are the one seed, much deserved. What comes to mind off the top of your head when you think of this Bobcat team?
Well, I just think defense. They've held their hand. They've hung their hat on their defensive style. They've been able to weather lots of offensive lulls. I wouldn't say they're the strongest offensive team in the league, but they control the possessions in games. They give themselves more opportunity on the offensive end by creating more of those possessions. And defensively, I think that they just have an identity. And Esmeralda Morales has just smoothly stepped into this team and led in a way that to me is impressive. I just didn't know how that was going to go this year. But she certainly made her teammates better. I think Caitlin Martin's going to be key in this tournament. She's been there before. I think they're really going to need to lean on a player like Caitlin Martin, maybe even a Taylor Jansen, some of these players that have been there that have been part of championship Bobcat basketball.
Number 2 seed, Northern Arizona. What comes to mind when you think of NAU?
Well, I have to say I've been so impressed with their cohesiveness.
No doubt.
This is a team that right now is on a 7-game winning streak. Again, here I am talking about these streaks when I just said I didn't want to go into that with the media, but you can't ignore that.
You can't.
And I do think that Sophie Glancy has obviously led the way. She's, 18 points a game, almost 9.5 rebounds. But the play of Taylor Feldman has certainly been impactful for NAU. They have multiple offensive threats. The Moran sisters, Nia Moran particularly, has been playing great. Leah Beatty certainly has a deadly shot. She scored over 3,000 points at Midland Classic Academy in high school, and she's just continued to do that all the way along in her career at Montana State and NAU. And then I think Sanaya Neverson. So I think that they are really strong in their first 6 players, and to me, playing really good basketball.
It's pretty wild that they're 25-6 and they've been totally overshadowed by Montana State. Like, that is an unbelievable record. They're about like another win, they break their school record. They have already tied it from last year. And this is going to be a pivotal week, though, for NAU, because these have been the back-to-back 2 greatest teams in their school's history in terms of the number of wins, and they have not gone to the NCAA tournament, and that's for no shortcoming of theirs. They just ran into an absolute buzzsaw in a 29-win Eastern Washington team a year ago.
Sac State the year before, Montana State the year before that.
So many good teams, right? And so you wonder if this is their year or not. I don't know. Just because of what stands in their way, but they have as good a chance as anybody in this tournament.
They do.
Around the Big Sky and Women's Hoops, Krista Redpath in the studio with us. Idaho in year 1 under Arthur Marrera gets the 3 seed. They get a tiebreaker over Weber. They were each 10-8 in league play. What comes to mind when you think of the Vandals?
Well, transfers. They've been able to
good ones.
And good ones, and such an interesting way that Carrie Amy ended up parting just after her first year.
Totally.
Arthur Marrera steps in. He was the associate head coach. He steps in. He brings in essentially a new team: Olivia Nelson, Hope Hossman, Jennifer Adlin, Rosie Schweitzer. That's a squad right there.
It is.
And they've certainly had their ups and downs, though, Coulter.
They have.
In defense of, at first, for a while there, I was thinking Idaho is just, they're ranked. We're talking about, and they are having Idaho just be in the mix. But they went through a 3-game losing streak towards the end of season and had some stumbles. But for the most part, 10-4 at home. So they do, a little bit better at home. But gosh, 18-11 is not anything to overlook.
No doubt,
sure.
No doubt. Weber State gets the 4 seed. We talked about them and their ability to sort of overcome some stuff and really improve in year 2 under Gentile Jackson. Idaho State, don't look now, but I would deem Idaho State as the hottest team in the league. They were toiling at the bottom of the standings, and they surged all the way up, and they get the 5 seed. They get the tiebreaker over the Lady Grizz. 8-10, maybe not the most sterling of conference records, but the fact that they won so often in the second half of league play, all I know is if I'm one of the top contenders, I do not want to play an Idaho State team that's won 6 out of their last 8 in this tournament. And
they've had 2 overtime games too that they could have easily won. They've been a team that to me has been a surprise. I wouldn't say Coach Sobolewski, we've watched him have wins. He's been there. He knows what to do in these tournaments.
Been in the NCAA tournament a couple times.
But roster wise, I've questioned just I've just looked at their team and just thought, okay, there's some pieces missing. I mean, Laura Bello, that was a big piece this year that he didn't have. I'm not sure what exactly happened there, but
because she went to the transfer portal, but then just came back, but then never played for them, right?
No, I'm not.
It's like a mystery, right?
Nobody
really knows. Okay,
and those are just things that maybe
we just don't know.
Get,
Maybe we just don't
answered.
get to know totally.
But I want to talk a little bit about the matchup between Weber State and Idaho State, because I think that to me, is really going to be key. But you just have to hand it to Idaho State. I'm a huge Casey Spink fan. Maybe offensively, she hasn't had the year that everyone thought she would have, but to me, she's an athlete. I really like Tasia Jordan. She's averaging, just under 17 points in her last 7 games. She's had 6 straight double-figure scoring games. So there's a few things that have shown consistency and maybe coming on strong heading into the tournament for Idaho State.
More on that matchup with Idaho State. We were here in just about 10 minutes,
Okay.
but Montana, we talked about them a little bit. We'll come back to Lady Grizz a little bit when we talk about that matchup with Idaho. But Eastern Washington, they were my pick to sort of surge down the stretch and maybe make some noise. I'm not counting them out yet, but they kind of were up and down the stretch after I made that proclamation. So I don't know what to think of the prospects for the Eagles, but they are the 7th seed in what has been sort of a rebuilding year after being the Big Sky Conference champions a year ago.
I think they've had moments.
Yeah.
They've had quarters of really good basketball and maybe just haven't been able to string them together.
They have a couple really good players. I just don't know if they have enough that are really ready to play at a truly elite championship level yet.
And they could be this team that comes in and makes a run. I mean, Alexis Pettis was part of that championship team last year.
Sure.
And, she comes in with some added poise. Obviously, love the play of Courtney Grossman. We can't talk about her more on the show. Peyton Howard has certainly been offensively.
She's been solid, yeah.
She's been solid. JC Eggers has also been giving them some added offense.
Played well against Lady Grizz for sure.
I think this is a team that, to your point, Coulter, rebuilding, but certainly could, if they put it together, they could make somewhat of a run.
Sac State is the 8th seed. I think they're the most talented team out of any of these teams that we're talking about. I mean, I think they got more really good players than anybody in the conference besides Montana State and Northern Arizona. But 4 really good players don't make a basketball team. You got to have 8 or 9 to really make a run in this particular conference for sure. But they did turn a corner certainly by beating Montana State and Bozeman. So what do we think of Sac State?
Well, last year Sac State was the 8th seed and they beat Idaho State. So they did get a tournament win, and I think that was a great game and some tournament momentum. Again, this is a team that's been up and down, and that's what you see with your 7 or your 8. But yeah, I like their chances. I like this team. So I think that, if stars align and as long as everyone's well, Fatu Jaite comes in and has a big game along with J.D. Martin. Katie Panaweta, I think it's very interesting. Katie Panaweta and J.D. Martin were childhood best friends.
Interesting.
And that's how they both came back. Panaweta came back.
Transferred to NC State and then came back. I've never heard of that before.
And so they're good friends. So, good camaraderie. Coach Koloff's talking about how his players just really like each other. And, they played their last game in the Nest. It's going away.
Right.
The Nest is going away. They're going to the Well, apparently, according to Will Schilling, who keeps me in check with all things
Well, they were
Sac
supposedly
State.
going to the Kings Arena, but that was when they were supposedly going to the Pac-12, and that seems to have lost some steam lately. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sac State and their future is so all over the place. I really have no idea. I have no idea what to think of where they're going to be or if they're going to be in the Big Sky or not. I don't know. That's a conversation for a different day. Northern Colorado's 9, Portland State's 10. They're the 2 teams towards the bottom for a reason. But just give us quick thoughts on either of those teams.
The one win that Portland State had was against UNC.
Yep.
So look at it that way. They split on the season.
Yep.
Remo Ogele had an incredible game here in Missoula. A double-double.
Yes.
I think they have some different players. Alea Fitzgerald I've really liked. And Portland State, obviously, this is the elephant in the room, but losing a player like Esmeralda Morales that you build your entire program around, and you give her the keys to the kingdom, and she's no longer, driving that ship. I think that's taken some wind out of Chelsea Gregg's sail this year. But I cannot say enough about how hard her kids compete. They get after it. They did in Missoula. They don't roll over. They continue to play hard. She's also had some injuries and some things happen this season that have not allowed her to put consistent players on the floor. So, again, you have your 9-10, but everyone makes the tournament.
That's
so
right.
Here we go.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, Chris Redpath in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. Probably presented by Giddy Up Go Creative Studios. Tell us more about these fine folks. They did a lot of our graphics that you used on social media that were really good this year.
Yes. Missoula is full of amazing businesses, and if you want eye-catching design that gets noticed, you need Giddy Up Go. Founded by Missoula native Shauna Layton, she's been shaping brands for years, and her work is seen all over town. Now she's helping businesses stand out with bold logos, marketing, and design that make an impact. Check out her work and get in touch at giddyup-go.com. If you've seen any of those banners over Madison Bridge, University of Montana, you might be able to make some correlation of Shauna's designs. Montana and beyond. Give her Instagram some love. Giddy Up Go Creative Studio.
More on Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops. Talk about the matchups. First round, potential second round, guaranteed quarters, all the above. Next, keep it right here. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, presented by Giddy Up Go Creative Studios. Okay, let's talk about the actual matchups in next week's Big Sky Conference tournament. It gets started on Saturday. Northern Colorado versus Portland State in the opener at noon, and then Eastern Washington versus Sac State at 2:30. The winner of Northern Colorado and Portland State plays Montana State, and then the winner of Eastern Washington and Sac State plays NAU. I love thinking and projecting that maybe one of these teams that plays in the first round can get a little momentum by getting a win and then going on a run. I just think that the top two seeds in this tournament are so head and shoulders above everybody else. So even if, let's look at the Eastern Sac game for a minute. I think both those teams are okay, pretty good. Sac's been playing well. I just think you run into a brick wall when you play in Northern Arizona in the second round. Do you think any of those four teams that play on the first day have a real chance to go and make an upset of the top two seeds?
I do. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it happened. We watched it happen in Reno in 2016 with a number 9 versus a number 1. But it's a different tournament, different city. But I do think, and I've talked about this throughout the year, but you have a team that has momentum and is comfortable with the arena that meets a cold and rigid first and second place team that has only been on the floor for 20 minutes. They don't get on the floor. Right. So you're comfortable, you're loose. Colter, you're playing with nothing to lose.
True.
And so, no, I absolutely think that this tournament is set up to really disrupt. And on one sense, I'd really rather just send the best team in the Big Sky to represent in the NCAA tournament. But here we are in this neutral site environment. Right. And so they might as well make it interesting. So I absolutely think this 1 and 2 have a tough go with meeting a team that has momentum.
So that's the interesting point, too, is that from a health of the league standpoint, everybody loves upsets when it comes to March, and that's why they call it madness and all that. It's actually terrible for the league if the best teams get upset early. Like it happened in the men's tournament last year. The number 1 and number 2 seeds got knocked out the second day. And the attendance and all that got saved because the Montana schools made runs and they had the most contingent down there. But if you get the top 2 seeds knocked out and then you don't have somebody else to sort of buoy it, it just makes the whole tournament seem so strange. Again, I love the notion of upsets, but like that year that Montana State and Idaho both got bounced early, and then all of a sudden you got Eastern Washington as the 6 or 7 seed playing Portland State, who's the 4 seed for the championship.
And Idaho wins in that 2016 year. I mean, I like John Newley. He's an incredible coach. Salvador comes to mind.
Yeah, Christina Idaho. Salvatore.
But I just think that they weren't the best team. I mean, we had the Hamas girl, Jasmine.
Jasmine Hamas, Lindsay Stockton, Peyton Ferris. That team was really good at Montana State, and they, one half-court buzzer beater, and it's all over. So, again, the excitement within the moment of the game is fun to consume. From the actual health of the league, it's not good for the best teams to get knocked out early on.
No, and then I will say this more about the bracket. You've got your 3, 4, 5, and 6 that are just hanging around the tournament forever.
Yes, right.
Just watching.
Totally.
Overthinking everything.
No doubt.
Like watching either their men, the women, they've literally been in the gym because they all get there in time to watch all these teams. But, you don't even see those teams until Monday. We've had 4 games before they even hit the floor.
The old format, when there was 12 teams, the biggest disadvantage you could get was be the 4 seed. Because the 5 seed got to play the 12. They're probably going to just wax them. And then they get a day off, and then they play the 4 seed. And the 4 seed would have to sit there and watch. There was so many years where the 5 seed would just kill the 4 seed because they already had their feet wet. But they changed the tournament because of the reduction of teams.
And also, Coulter, I don't remember those moments because I was calling 4 games in a day.
Totally.
And that was crazy.
Yeah, melting your brain. Totally.
I mean, that was an absolute brain melt.
Yeah.
So this tournament format is good in that you're 1 and 2 have a day off.
Yes.
So from a rest standpoint, you have a Mara Dykstra that's coming in. You just got to have her. You just have to have her in this game. Then you give her a day to maybe sit on that ankle.
And then you say, semis are here, let's go.
Right. So I think there's some advantages, but I think that it's set up to kind of test your toughness.
No doubt. The 4-5 game is the first game on Monday of this tournament between Weber State and Idaho State. That's at noon. And then the 3-6 game is at 2:30. That features the Lady Grizz, who's the 6, versus Idaho, who's the 3. So break down those matchups for us. What do you think of Weber State versus Idaho State first?
Well, Weber State swept Idaho State this year, which is a rarity. We just haven't seen it happen in years past. Just a credit again, we've talked about Gentile Jackson. I think she's just done a phenomenal job this year. It'll be interesting to see. Sophia Cavallo offensively had a great game in January, and then she put together another one in February. Casey Spank, Piper Carlson, Tasia Jordan. These are a few Idaho State regulars that have put up some offense as of late. But I want to talk just a little bit about this Weber State team. You know, Taylor Smith, Emma Nopu, Kendra Parra, Rose Babakar, Kennedy Eccleston, Billy Lene. I look at them. They don't have a lot of numbers, Coulter.
Right.
They're not deep, but they're effective. And so to me, offensively, they've been able to string together some great games and put up points. They're lights out from behind the 3-point line. If you give them an opportunity, you don't get a hand in their face. I think this is, I don't want to say it's leaning towards the Weber State because Idaho State just seems to come in and play in these tournament settings.
How do you think that element works? Because Seton Sobolewski, the one thing you know is that his teams are going to come to this tournament and they're going to play an incredibly physical style that's going to bother the team that they're playing against, if not completely disrupt the team they're playing against.
Okay.
How does Weber handle the physicality?
Well, I want to give Seton Sobolewski some love right now because we haven't talked a ton about Idaho State. All right, he's in his 17th year. We talk about Binford being in her 20th.
Yep.
Coach Sobolewski is right there. They have played, they went to the NCAA tournament back in 2012, and then they also went in 2021, but they've been there more teams than anybody else in the league.
Yes, right.
So to me, they've always been kind of a defensive team. I didn't see that at times this year. It was really interesting. I saw it out of Casey Spank. I think the girl has a high motor and plays defense all the time. Just saw some pieces that were missing. But as of late in the second half of conference, they put together a great string of wins.
Yes, they did. And I'm just so interested to see because he and his staff not scared to turn the game into a brawl. And
That's a good way to put it.
And I just wonder because we've seen them just mess teams up in this because if you are not ready to brawl, they are just fine with beating you like 49-47. Like they'll play a low scoring game where everybody's not shooting very well, but there's no freedom of movement. You're making sure everybody that cuts across your face is getting incurred. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they can disrupt it. But when you are that team and the other team doesn't react well, it gives you an upper hand immediately.
I think looking at this matchup, though, rebounding is going to be really big. Weber State owned the rebounding advantage in both of their outings. Turnovers. That's going to be key too in this tournament. Who's going to be able to? It's a huge key that we haven't even really touched upon today. Who's going to take care of the basketball and who's going to make shots? Those are the two biggest factors in who will win in Boise.
Lady Grizz versus Idaho is 2:30 on Monday afternoon. Idaho was so red hot. They've come back down to earth, but they still are the 3 seed. Lady Grizz, it's funny because we talk constantly about how they got to get over this make-miss mentality. But now, you are what you are when you get to the tournament. And so, to me, I don't know if you can fix that. I think you just got to make shots. Like, if you're Montana, if you want to actually make a run in this tournament, you just got to make shots. And if you do make shots, I think you're a contender. But that's a huge if.
Well, it's so interesting because they saw Idaho twice in January. So this Idaho and Montana matchup didn't happen.
Right, because there's one team where every team plays them the first time and the second time after just the 7th game.
Right.
And so then you don't see them again forever and ever.
So the first matchup was in Missoula on the 4th of January.
Right.
And the second was in Moscow on the 20th of January.
Right.
First time around, the Lady Grizz couldn't buy a shot. They ended up scoring 50. Offensively, just not a good outing for them. I mean, they went from beating Eastern Washington 2 days before and putting up 78 points to just putting up 50. So they hit a brick wall against Idaho, which that's when I thought, Idaho is kind of arriving.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
what is
right,
going
right.
on here? The Lady Grizz struggled. Avery Waddington had a great game. She had 15 points and 9 rebounds. I think she wasn't in the starting lineup yet, but she really, asserted her presence and has become a focal point of this Lady Grizz team. Second time around, Idaho puts up 70 points. Olivia Nelson, Hope Hossman, Jennifer Adlin, Rosie Schweitzer, all the same players we've talked about, all in double figures against Montana. The rebounding advantage was owned by the Lady Grizz, so you have to give them credit there. I mean, they won the board battle. Forced some turnovers, the turnover thing for them. Idaho's actually a team that takes care of the basketball, and when they had their lull where they were losing games, they were turning the ball over a lot.
Totally.
But against Montana, they played pretty good basketball. So, again, these two teams haven't seen each other for the month of February. We'll see.
I'm going to just do the speculation thing real
Okay.
quick here. I get what Chris was saying where it's March and everybody can win every game. Montana State and Northern Arizona are not losing to either of the two teams that play the first day of the tournament. They're going to be in the semifinals. So, question for you, if and when that happens, who's the tougher matchup for, let's just start with Montana State, the 1 seed, Weber or Idaho State?
For Montana State.
Yes, we're just assuming Montana
boy.
State beats
Gosh.
Northern Colorado or Portland State, which I think is probably going to happen.
Coulter, that's a hard one just because it would have to depend on how they played.
Yeah,
going in.
totally.
I mean, if Weber State just comes out and lights it and beats Idaho State, just gets a smackdown, similar to, do you remember Portland State having that game against the Cats?
Yes,
Whereas
I do.
I mean, they
she hit
just
6 threes in the first half and went crazy.
So, let's put it this way: I like Montana State's chances
No doubt.
against either one of those teams.
And then if Northern Arizona is in the semis, they'll play the winner of Idaho and Montana. I think Idaho is the way tougher matchup because the Lady Grizz have had no answers for Northern Arizona this year, or really for the last couple of years.
Right. I think you're right there too.
I mean,
agree with you.
they've just run Montana off the court. I mean, last time they played them, they almost hung 100 on them. So I think this is a bad matchup for the Lady Grizz, and it's a good matchup if you're NAU.
Well, and you take a look at, that would be a tough one for the Lady Grizz, and I agree with you. I think that either of those sides. I mean, when I look at having to hit an NAU team who can really put up some points, and the one thing about NAU, they can control tempo. They can make you play faster than you want to play, which
Right.
is not good for the Lady Grizz.
That's
When
not
that
good.
happens. Just like in Bozeman,
Yep.
when all of a sudden it turns into we're getting up and down and they just need to settle and they couldn't, that's just not good because they start throwing the basketball away. So, I think you've pointed out some really good scenarios, and being the color analyst on this tournament, I got to, really check myself
No
for
doubt.
saying who I'm pulling for, because that's really not how it works.
No doubt.
But I think any one of these teams has showed moments this year where they played good basketball.
As I always say, the only thing I root for in sports anymore is a good story. No matter who wins these games, it's going to be a great story, and we'll have plenty of coverage for you. That said, as somebody that wants the league to have its best scenario, I desperately want Montana State and Northern Arizona to play for the championship because that is the best scenario for the league. If that happens, you'll have a 29-win team versus a 27-win team, and the best part about it is either of those teams beating each other gets you a boost into the NCAA tournament because you both have high net rankings too. So maybe it even helps you in the seeding. That said, if the bracket gets disrupted, it'll be a heck of a lot of fun to cover. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, Chris Redpath, Coulter Nuanez is probably presented this week by Giddy Up Go Creative Studios. Best of luck on the call this week, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Coulter.